Coming up, Shymkent vaccinated 100% of its population against coronavirus. Stay tuned for details. Kazakh school children studied remotely longer than their peers from Europe and the EAEU. In Kazakhstan, it was proposed to create travel bubbles with neighboring countries during the current pandemic. Will this help to restore the pre-pandemic tourist traffic? Find out in our news digest. (1,717 cases of the coronavirus infection were registered in Kazakhstan in the past 24 hours. The highest daily case count was seen in the city of Almaty, where 326 people tested positive for the dangerous virus. 280 people caught the infection in the capital. Pavlodar region comes third with 163 COVID-19 cases. The total number of infected people has already exceeded 905,000 since the beginning of the pandemic. Meanwhile, according to the Kazakh Health Ministry, more than 53,000 patients continue to receive treatment for coronavirus in the country to date. 194 patients are currently in critical condition. 127 are connected to the artificial lung ventilation devices. The coronavirus immunization campaign is still underway in Kazakhstan. According to the latest data, about 7 million people have received both components of the vaccine. 69% of Kazakh citizens have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, announced Health Minister Alexey Tsoy during the government hour in the Majlis. As a result, the number of patients has sharply decreased and the epidemiological situation in the country has stabilized. He added, "Stabilization of the epidemiological situation in the COVID-19 infection rate has now been achieved. The country registers up to 2,000 cases per day, which also affected the spread of the virus. Compared to August 1st, the reproductive number decreased 1.2 times. The stabilization of the coronavirus epidemic is reflected in a decrease in hospitalizations. Currently, 36% of infectious disease beds and 33% of ICU beds are occupied." So said that Kazakhstan might expand the list of people who can get the Pfizer vaccine. So far, it is the only COVID-19 vaccine recommended for children over 12 years of age and pregnant women. A contract for the delivery of 4 million doses of Pfizer vaccine by the end of this year has already been signed, he added. Currently, 5 types of coronavirus vaccines are available to Kazakh citizens, including Sputnik V, Kazakh, Hayatvax, CoronaVac and Sinopharm. The population of Shymkent city is 100% vaccinated. The authorities reported that the plan to inoculate the population is fulfilled. Over 450,000 people have already received both components. To date, all 536,000 Kazakh citizens subject to vaccination have received the first component of the anti-epidemic vaccine. 60,000 people are additionally included in this category, the press service reported. The number of coronavirus cases detected in the city has significantly decreased. 28 people were infected with the virus here in the past 24 hours. In this regard, the metropolis moved into a safe green zone today. Singapore authorities have banned unvaccinated citizens from visiting cafes, shopping malls, tourist facilities and parks. This decision was made due to a new coronavirus wave. According to the health minister, starting next week, unvaccinated citizens will have to buy takeout food. However, despite a large number of patients in hospital beds, the country is not planning on imposing a lockdown. To date, 80% of the Singaporean adult population have been fully vaccinated against the virus with 2 doses. Once this outbreak stabilizes, we may face new outbreaks of infection associated with the spread of new strains. We may have to tighten restrictions somewhere to protect the healthcare system and the healthcare workers. A case of Ebola has been confirmed in the city of Beni in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The disease has not been detected in the region for the past 5 months. However, recently a 3-year-old boy was reported to have died from the disease. Now experts are sounding the alarm, fearing that the disease may worsen again. According to the country's health ministry, about 100 residents are currently under close medical supervision. As a matter of fact, the 2018-2020 Ebola outbreak killed 2,300 people in Beni. The United States will provide humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. This became known during the talks between the Taliban and the US authorities in Qatar. Washington also negotiated support for charities in Afghanistan. However, the Taliban made it a condition that humanitarian aid will be provided without any requirements. During the meeting, the parties discussed political issues and agreed to further organize a meeting to improve diplomatic relations. According to some reports, the Taliban plan to hold similar talks with the European Union in the near future. Kazakhstan and the United Arab Emirates agreed to implement joint projects worth $6 billion. Following bilateral negotiations, an intergovernmental agreement was signed on establishment of a long-term partnership in the sectors of energy, agriculture, transport logistics, pharmaceuticals and finance. During the visit, the postal services of Kazakhstan and the UAE issued 2 postage stamps on the theme 30 years of independence of the Republic of Kazakhstan, 50 years of the formation of the United Arab Emirates, and memorial and anniversary dates. Currently, UAE companies are participating in the implementation of 11 large investment projects in Kazakhstan with a total value of over $3.5 billion. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to the largest disruption in education systems in history. It has affected more than 1.5 billion students worldwide, the ranking agency reports. Kazakhstan is no exception. As a matter of fact, according to the rating agency, the country was ranked first in terms of the duration of students' distance learning mode. Kazakh school students studied remotely for 11 months. This is longer than in Europe and the Eurasian Economic Union. Experts explain that learning online for such a long time was made possible due to good internet coverage, which reached 98.3% in the first half of the year. School students in Kazakhstan intend to get water from the air. The young inventors presented their innovative project during the first global challenge. The strongest teams from all over the world take part in the competition that's held online this year. Kazakh team includes about 20 high school students. Participants have to find effective measures to combat global problems and create various devices from the available materials which will serve all mankind.
Суды көптеген способтармен алуға болады, бірақ біз
There are different ways to get water, but we decided to get it from the air. The air must be clean. The water can be used only for economic purposes, not for drinking. We have been working on the project for months now. According to our calculations, one generator can process up to 20 liters of water per day.
күніне бір генератормен 20 литрдей ауадан алуға болады.
The young inventors from Kazakhstan have already presented prototypes of the engineering installation to the jury. They also assembled a nanosatellite and sent it to the stratosphere.
Бұл модельде бізде 5 түрлі датчик қолданылады. Тазалық датчигі, жарықтың датчигі.
We use 5 different sensors. These are sensors for measuring purity, light temperature, wind speed. We also installed a camera. The satellite takes off to an altitude of 10 kilometers and photographs the surface of the Earth. This installation will be especially useful in the spring to forecast possible flooding. With this information, we will be able to prevent floods.
Арқылы бізге SMS жібереді. Бұл ақпараттар арқылы біз су тасқындарын алдын ала аламыз.
At the competition held in 2019 in Dubai, inventors from Kazakhstan took third place among more than 190 countries, taking the lead over such giants of robotics as China, Japan, and the United States. A single organization for consumer protection will be created in Kazakhstan, said Askar Tanasbekov, chairperson of the committee of the Kazakh Ministry of Trade and Integration. According to him, the committee plans to introduce a second package of amendments into the legislation to improve legal norms in this field. The document has already been considered at the first meeting of the Interdepartmental Council in June this year. Later, it was posted on the Open Legal Acts website for public discussion. It is planned to lay a legislative basis for the functioning of a single nationwide non-profit organization based on a voluntary basis, which will lead to the consolidation of public associations throughout the country into one systematized, organized, financially and normatively strengthened non-governmental organization for the consumer protection with a national status. The second thing is the introduction of the institution of the Ombudsman for the protection of consumer rights. The Ombudsman will serve as the voice of the people and public associations. It is offered to create travel bubbles in Kazakhstan with neighboring countries during the pandemic. Such green corridors are nothing new and are already actively implemented in the world travel industry, experts noted. According to them, the project will facilitate control over the passage of tourists over land borders and will enhance regional cooperation. Thus, visitors will not need to notify the authorities on their itinerary or stay in quarantine for 2 weeks. However, it is still necessary to take a coronavirus test. As part of the project, experts offered to create a regional interdepartmental commission for this project, improve the infrastructure of checkpoints and create common security protocols.
Основной поток все-таки туристов, которые к нам приезжают, они приезжают сухопутным путем. На самая протяженная граница с Россией в мире, более 7000 километров. И получается, что
The main flow of tourists comes to us by land. We have the longest border with Russia in the world, more than 7,000 kilometers. At the moment, our vaccine passport has not yet been adopted by other neighboring countries, except for Kyrgyzstan. But nevertheless, there was news that Kazakhstan adopts the vaccine passports of several countries, including Hungary, Armenia, Iran, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, Turkey, and others. Travel bubbles means that it is necessary to create conditions to make tourists come to us. They should be created by some kind of protocol that allows visit in the country for tourism purposes, avoiding a lot of paperwork.
Несмотря на условия, то есть они должны создаваться некие протоколы, которые позволяют им в обход многих бюрократических нюансов посещать страну в целях туризма.
Now the project on green corridors for tourists is planned to be sent to the relevant authorities and discussed with neighboring countries. According to experts, such a practice will help restore the flow of tourists, which was in the pre-COVID era. An exhibition of tulips dedicated to the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence was held in Singapore. Along with flowers, a yurt, the traditional dwelling of Kazakhs, was presented to Singaporeans for the first time. They were also introduced to Kazakh traditions, culture and music. The exhibition visitors were also able to see a copy of Hoja Ahmed Yassoui's mausoleum. The country's minister, Indrani Raja, was among the guests of the exhibition. Singapore attaches great importance to Kazakh-Singaporean relations and remembers that contacts between the two heads of state began several months before Kazakhstan became a sovereign nation.
Казахстанско-сингапурские отношения
Kazakh-Singapore relations are developing very dynamically in all areas, and this began 30 years ago with the historic visit of Singapore's first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew to Almaty, where he met with the first President of Kazakhstan, Nur-Sultan Nazarbayev.
Казахстана Елбасы Нурсултаном Назарбаевым.
Only residents vaccinated against COVID-19 were allowed to visit the exhibition. It is expected that it will be visited by about 200,000 Singapore residents. The Karagandy Academic Musical Comedy Theater presented its 6th best place on the Astana Opera stage. For the metropolitan audience, the artists have prepared a bright and rich program. The musical fairy tales The Magic Bird Samruk, Little Mook and The Magic Flower were presented to children, while famous operettas Silva by Kalmas and The World Skin by Strauss, as well as Kolker's musical Trofaldino from Bergamo, were presented to the adult audience. These plays were chosen to show the diversity and potential of our theater, the vocal talents of our soloists, the dance potential of the ballet artists, as well as to present the possibilities of our orchestra. That's to fully reveal its genre characteristics.
Я буду дирижировать практически все спектакли, которые Карагандинский
I
театр...
will be conducting almost all the performances that the Karagandy Theater announced on the tower poster, except for the Samruk fairy tale. I have been to European theaters, I've been to the Vienna Opera, but what I saw in the theater is amazing. I guess I just haven't seen the US theaters yet. I simply don't know what I can compare it to. It is grandiose, it is a temple.
То есть у меня просто аналогов нету, чтобы сравнить. Это грандиозно, это просто грандиозно, это действительно храм.
The repertoire of the Karagandy Theater includes over 280 plays. Among them are the best performances of the world classical operetta as well as modern ones. Theater directors are experimenting with various musical genres by staging musicals, recitals and romance evenings. Next, the Karagandy Theater will go on tour to Nizhny Novgorod, Shymkent and Almaty.